It's time for another edition of Dome and Domer.
Hey, Irish fans, welcome back to Dome and Domer, the oldest Notre Dame sports podcast on the planet. I'm your host, Mike Sullivan from the class of 1990, and joining me today from the class of 91, Mike Coffey, and from Dillon Hall in the class of 90, Mike Brammer. Hey, guys, how we doing?
Hey, we're rolling.
Well, I wish we could say the same thing about our basketball programs that had a tough weekend. Women got thumped at Michigan. The men let one get away at Ohio State. But we're going to spend our time today talking about something that's going well and rolling right along, and that, of course, is our football team. We're going to begin by looking at this date in Notre Dame history, November 17th. In 2012, third-ranked Irish defeat Wake Forest 38-0. Following that game, the next day, the Irish go to number one in the Associated Press and the coaches poll for the first time since 1993. Those were heady days, guys. I'm sure you remember. Coffee, I'm going to invoke Brian Kelly. Sorry, brace yourself. But in BK's third year, that third-year magic was definitely rolling for the Irish as we go 12-0 in the regular season. But the win against Wake Forest propelled us the next day to that number one ranking. In 2018, another undefeated regular season, the third-ranked Irish defeat, wait for it, number 12 Syracuse in Yankee Stadium, 36-3. And if I recall correctly, Syracuse's coach pulled a Pat Narduzzi and kicked the field goal with under a minute to go to avert the shutout. And so the Irish cruised against the Orange in that one, and we're looking for more of the same this week. So let's turn our attention to the game coming up this Saturday in Notre Dame Stadium, Senior Day against Syracuse. You know, I was expecting a sort of a tight, anxiety-filled kind of matchup with Steve Angeli leading his team back into Notre Dame Stadium. Unfortunately for Angeli, he suffered a season-ending injury. Good news for us is this is not a good Syracuse team. And so we should be able to pad our stats. Let's take a look at the stats through 10 games. You know, we've talked about Eric Hansen, who is just the best out there. Eric Hansen always says that championship caliber teams really look elite in 5 key statistical categories. And how are the Irish doing? We've been looking at this all year, and we see those numbers continuing to improve. Pass efficiency, we're third in the country. That's just terrific with a freshman quarterback. It's great for anybody, but to do it with a freshman quarterback, you know, Freeman talked a little bit about what makes CJ Carr special. Did you guys have a chance to listen to Coach Freeman's comments today?
I didn't. I did a little bit. It's really gratifying. I mean, I know I've said previously that getting a little more nervous about Carr. I mean, I know he's been in the system previously. He's not a true freshman, but is his first year of really getting a lot of reps, and this is the time of the season when players who aren't really acclimated to that maybe can start to break down a little bit, or especially when you're in the end of the season, you're like, right now we're just looking to get to 10-2 and get into the playoffs as possible, and just not necessarily becomes a slog, but just from a physical endurance standpoint, I think he's holding up a lot better than maybe some people would thought he would. I mean, he's not losing zip or touch on his passes. He still has a few things to learn, but I'm really glad to see that he's obviously prepared himself for the rigors of the first season starting.
Well, I think Freeman talked about the mental, how good he is mentally, right? And the things that he does that the average fan won't even see, and getting us in and out of the right play, the right protection, et cetera. And, you know, Freeman told a story about how it's one thing when you coach him, hey, CJ, if X happens, you do Y. But now he's at a point where he's understanding how to apply the coaching to situations they haven't even talked about yet, because he really is getting a grasp for it. And I guess that's not entirely surprising, given that he is the grandson of Lloyd Carr, right? He's been around football his whole life, and the kid just has the right approach. Another key statistical category that is an indicator of being an elite team, rushing offense. We're 26th in the country in rushing offense. Again, just terrific, particularly when you think about we're down 3 starters in the offensive line. And, you know, Coach did talk a little bit about the depth chart. Shrouth, I don't think we're going to see Shrouth until the playoffs start, but that banged up offensive line is holding up pretty good. Bram, rushing defense, we're 13th in the country, truly, really elite status. And when you look at a couple teams, we're going to talk about the playoff scenarios and implications here shortly. But when you look at a couple teams that we are being compared to, Alabama's 46th in rush defense. Notre Dame's 13th, right? That's got to make you feel good.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, again, I keep thinking that it'd be interesting to take a look at where we're at if you take out the first two games, because there were big chunks there. But, the defense is what it is. And I just think that you got to give a tip of the cap to Ash for what he's been able to do with this team, especially since the A&M game.
Well, no question about it.
They're elite for sure. And the eye test proves it. I think Pitt saw something they weren't expecting, but maybe they were expecting. At least Narduzzi seems to think so. But just the way that we're playing right now, the physicality and everything, it's definitely an elite program. That's for sure.
For sure. 29th in total D, turnover margin 10th. Again, you can't erase those first two games. But I think the rush to judgment. Freeman botched the hire. Chris Ash is incompetent. The guy's never been successful. All the stupid things we were hearing across the sort of the landscape after a game or two games. Okay, 10 games is a more fair representation, isn't it? Right? And let's get to the end of the regular season and let's see how it all shakes out. Because everybody plays elite competition and everybody plays dogs, and you just got to wait for the 12 games to play out.
Allow me to defend the stupid for a moment.
That's why you're on the show, Coffee.
Hey, I'm the representative of the Dome. What can I say? If you look at what happened in those first two games versus what's happened since, I mean, there has definitely been a change, however subtle, in style. Now, I will give Chris Ash every ounce of credit in the world for realizing that a reactive weebles wobble but they don't fall down type defense is not how this roster was built. This roster wants to be aggressive. If you look at the number of plays, the percent number of plays where multiple blitzers are sent in these last 8 games or wherever we're at, and the first two, it's very, very different. I mean, now granted, what is it? Well, I believe the percentage went from like somewhere in the 30s to upwards of 50, give or take a little. I'll have to go back and look at my notes. I completely caught from maybe being wrong. However, watching this, it's philosophically different. And again, I give Chris Ash all the credit in the world that he didn't stubbornly just boom, 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 boom. I think he and Marcus Freeman put their heads together and said, what can we do that not only that speaks to or works with Chris Ash's strengths and these players' strengths. Let's find the happy medium. Let's find an area that makes everybody succeed. I think right now that's what they're doing. I think that's fantastic. But
I think
that change did still have to be made.
That change, they no question they huddled up and said we got to fix this, and they did, right? But it's like, CJ Carr and the first half against the Miami game, and we didn't let him throw the ball down the field. Like, who would go into that environment with a freshman making his first start and hose it all over the place? In other words, what I'm saying is the competition and where you are with your personnel in week one dictates certain things. And so whether or not those things represented a philosophical stance or they were the best game plan given the competition, or at least what we decided to do given the competition. I think more than anything, we decided what the standard of physicality was going to be that we were going to live with and accept at practice, what the standard of effort was that we were going to tolerate, and decided that we will not tolerate certain things if we're going to reach our full potential. I think the coaches got better at holding people accountable based on, I'm just talking, this is what Freeman's saying, right? So I don't know that, fundamentally we are philosophically different. I don't know about that. But nevertheless, you can't argue with the results that we're getting. And Chris Ash deserves a ton of credit. Mm-hmm. But as I said back then, the most important guy is Marcus Freeman. That's the most important guy. And we are lucky to have him running the ship. That's for sure.
Could not agree more.
They did talk about today. The Pitt game was only 3 times this year have we had Gray, Moore, and Devontae Smith start and finish a game together. It's only the 3rd time, right? So we've had a banged up secondary that had to play guys that maybe weren't quite ready. And then we had to discover Tay Johnson. He didn't start week 1, right?
No,
and so guys ascended, guys have gotten healthy. Coaches maybe have made some changes in terms of what we are accepting and tolerating. And the whole thing has come together beautifully. And this is an elite defense.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about a few other nuggets that came out of the press conference today on the injury front. Greathouse could play, but it looks like they're going to hold him out to not waste the year and preserve that redshirt year. You guys agree with that move?
I think if they did it with Grayhouse, absolutely. I gotta believe they did, and I'm sure that they sat down with them and gave them here's the pluses and minuses of this, and let Grayhouse make the decision. But probably nudging them a little bit one way or the other. But I do agree that's a great move, only because I think that the receiving core room has responded. I mean, it's been bad that we've missed Grayhouse. But you know what? Guys have stepped up, and we've actually delivered. Malachi Fields being one of them, obviously. But I just think that with the rhythm that's going with the receiving core, may not take advantage of the opportunity we got right now, unless we get into the playoffs and all of a sudden something happens, we lose Fields or something like that.
No. So the playoffs don't count against redshirt year. He's simply talking about the next 2 games. We don't need to play Greathouse. We won't play him. We don't need him to. And to your point, I don't think we need to, right? Will Pauling's been really good in the slot. Yeah. And Freeman did talk about, you got to do what's best for the individual and the team and find that middle ground, right? It's always a both and kind of situation for the leader to try to navigate. Gabe Rubio, he's another one. Could play, but I think they're going to hold him out for hopefully a postseason run.
No, and I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, it seems to me that Marcus Freeman is not going to tolerate malcontents on a team. And so I know there were some folks floating around there saying, "Oh, Greathouse doesn't want to play. He wants to preserve his red shirt." It's like if that was the case, Freeman would have ushered him right out the door, because I don't think he has the time or the patience or something like that. I think Greathouse has stayed engaged, which is good. I think saving him that year of eligibility to give him the maximum flexibility, not only is that good for him, but that also tells everybody else on the team, listen, we are not going to sacrifice you or what you want just for what we want. And I think giving him the flexibility to play in the postseason or do what he wants to do, I think that's fantastic. I think it doesn't hurt Notre Dame at all. As we said, we should be able to beat Syracuse and Stanford with the wide receivers that we have, all of whom are playing very well. Now, we need them in the playoffs. Great. Let's bring them back. Let's rock and roll with it. If we want to wait till next year, we're losing Fields and Pauling, those guys. I mean, we certainly need someone to step in.
Well, I got to believe
he'll definitely be necessary.
In the playoffs, it's all hands on deck, I would
no doubt.
assume, right? So, having preserve his eligibility, get him healthy, get him ready for a playoff run. That sounds like a great plan. James Flanagan, freshman tight end, another one. He could play in one more game and preserve a red shirt. He's ascending. They like what he's doing. It sure seems like get him one more game, and then we're going to see him probably on the field more in the playoff stretch. Now, okay, we're talking playoffs as if it's a foregone conclusion. Well, let's talk about it. College football playoff rankings come out Tuesday night. If you notice, the Associated Press and the coaches poll both had Notre Dame 9 and Alabama 10. I think that's what we'll see Tuesday night in the CFP rankings. Bram, what do you think about that? Are we going to be ahead or behind Alabama? This assumes Oklahoma is going to be 8, right?
Yeah, I assume that's going to be the case. I mean, to me, it would be a little bit shocking to have Alabama fall in front of us. And I think that would be a really bad sign. I don't think it would be consistent with what they've done up to this point. So my guess is that Alabama's going to be right behind us. And if that's the case, then I think we're perfectly positioned for the rest of the season, regardless of what kind of chaos could happen. And there definitely is a ton of chaos that can happen. I mean, there's absolutely no guarantees on anybody's schedule with what we think is going to play out. There certainly is a lot of things that could come into play here, but I think every scenario gets reduced by a lot as long as we stay in front of Alabama.
I think that would be the thing to look for Tuesday night for sure. If we stay ahead of Alabama at 9, I like what that signals. I like how that positions us. Certainly not a guarantee, but that would be a great sign. Sliding to 10 would make you worry a little bit. Coffee, what's your take?
Well, I think, yes, both Alabama and Notre Dame have 2 losses, but remember, the beginning of the season, Alabama got beat by Florida State, a Florida State team that has turned out to be absolutely horrible. So, yeah, Alabama may have 1 or 2 better wins, but they definitely have the most atrocious loss. And I don't know if you can necessarily consider an Iron Bowl win for them a lock. I mean, they've got to go to Auburn, and they get a little shaky when they get away from when they're away from home. So,
and Kalen DeBoer has shown in his nearly 2 years that they can lose when they're expected to win. So
no doubt.
I agree.
And quite frankly, ever since Nick Saban retired, I think the SEC in general has taken a step down. I mean, when you have the greatest coach in the history of college football, and I will say that is what Nick Saban is. When you have him in your conference and you're going up against him, rising tide lifts all boats. Then, yeah, you have people going up against the best every week, and it definitely showed. The 2 years since, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't help that they play very few quality out of conference games, and they just beat up on each other. Trademark.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, Coffee, unfortunately, but the change in the SEC is when paying players became legal. That's the change in the SEC. It's not Nick Saban. Hate to break the news to you, but the brown bag doesn't exist anymore. So without a brown bag, who is Nick Saban?
No, Bram. No, come on now. Nick Saban's the greatest coach in the history of college football. Nick Saban is the greatest coach in the history of college football, full stop. But your point, Bram, I agree with you. Like, the playing field has leveled in our favor with the NIL, right? And revenue share. That is in our favor, no question about it. But we're getting off the point. Here's the point. Between the Big Ten and the SEC, I've been saying this all year, and I'm going to stick with it. As long as they only get 8 teams in the playoff between them, we're going to be fine. If they get 9, the math doesn't work. We're out. I don't expect that to happen. If you looked at the Big Ten, what would you project the Big Ten number is in terms of playoff berths? I mean, is it 3? Is it
at the moment it's 3, but here's where it gets weird is what happens if, Michigan does what they've done the last 5 years and owns Ryan Day again and pulls off the victory. They're now 10-2 with a good win against Ohio State. I don't think that's enough to leapfrog us. My gut instinct would be, okay, guys, calm down a minute. They've got some bad losses.
Well, Bram, let me ask you, if Michigan does that, does Michigan become the 3rd Big Ten team or the 4th? Because that's really what matters.
Well, right. Well, I think it's the Big Ten's got 2 games that matter. So it's not just Michigan beating Ohio State. You then have to have either USC beating Oregon to then get into the championship game, right? And I assume that they do. I assume that if USC wins, gets to the Big Ten championship because of the head-to-head, and again, that's an assumption. I don't know of any other.
If Indiana and Ohio State stay undefeated, then
no. But if Michigan beats,
if Ohio State gets beat.
Yeah,
that's a good question. I don't know. I think
because the head-to-head goes to Michigan, but then Michigan lost to USC. So
no, it goes to USC. So USC would play IU in that scenario, and regardless, like if the Big Ten gets 4 teams, then the SEC can only get 4. And who are your 4 SEC teams? More importantly, who's the 5th you leave out? Texas A&M, Georgia, Mississippi, they're all in, right? Kind of assuming
Oklahoma would have to win out to cause problems.
Right.
Oklahoma wins out, and then all of a sudden, how do you keep them out?
Well, you wouldn't. They'd be in at
This
10-2.
this all would be fixed with a 16-team playoff. I do know that.
Amen.
And they
Amen.
really need to get there. This whole everyone, the whole top 8 should get to host a game. I mean, I remember going to that playoff game last year. That was one of the most incredible atmospheres I've ever seen at any college football game I've been to. And I went to the title game, and it was kind of antiseptic. It's in an NFL stadium and stuff like that. Getting those playoff games on campus is an incredible atmosphere. I can't see why. I mean, I see why the top 4 teams want the bye, but a chance to host like a really low-ranking team and get that kind of atmosphere, I think that's great.
I think that's what you're going to see next year for sure. Is 16 teams and top 8 get the home game. That makes the most sense. But in terms of this year, again, I think this is how there's a couple key games that we should watch this weekend. Bram, to your earlier point, way too many scenarios to really zero in and say, okay, this is what has to happen. But a few key games that really go, we would like to see go in our favor. Yeah, Oregon losing to SC would be great. I wouldn't mind if they lost to Washington, right? As long as Oregon loses, that's going to be great for us.
Or Cincinnati beating BYU. I mean,
Cincinnati
that would
beating
be
BYU.
huge.
That would help too.
That's a good one as well, because then you could have BYU beat Texas Tech. Because what I think we need to root for, like it matters who we root for, but I want to believe it does, is the ACC gets one. The Big 12 gets one. And so those are, anything that can align so that the loser of those championship games is not in the conversation, or a non-qualifier for the championship game is not in the conversation. That's the kind of chaos I've been wanting to see. And there's a few games you got to keep your eye on. In the Big 12, this is not this week, but a week after. Can West Virginia in Morgantown beat Texas Tech? Stranger things have happened in November in Morgantown, right? So there's some interesting games out there that we'll have to see. Are we a lock at 10-2? Coffee? Yes, no.
Right now, I would say no. I mean, depending on, as you said, there's so many games that would. Pitt winning out would really, really help us, because not only does that get them, I think, into the ACC title game, but it also knocks Miami out completely, because what we don't want is Miami floating around out there as a potential at-large, so that the ACC ends up with 2.
Well,
so
let's pause on that one. That's a good scenario. 10-2 Miami. Do they get in ahead of us? To me, this is the question of, is it resume or head-to-head? Our resume overall would be better. They would have the head-to-head. Which way would the committee go? It seems to me that
is it the 1989 committee or the 1993 committee? Because they each use different criteria as we.
Well, I mean, it will be interesting.
Wait a minute. There was no committee. It was just the stupid.
Oh, I know,
media,
but I mean,
right?
like the people who decide, the grand poobahs who decide in 1989 decided one way, and then the grand poobahs in 1993 decided the other way. Both of which screwed us. So
for sure. No, I think the way the committee is looking at Notre Dame right now, you gotta feel good about a direct comparison with Miami if they're 10-2. Bram,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that the key thing here, and this is what I assume is repeated often in the committee's room as they meet. We're looking for the 12 best college football teams today, not back when the season started. Who are the 12 best teams today? I find it hard to believe that Notre Dame's not in that top 12. Just by the way,
100% agree. 100%
so
agree.
if they
Absolutely.
stick with that mantra, then I don't see how. Again, I really feel like tomorrow is the indicator. If somehow we fall behind Bama, look out. Then saner heads are not prevailing in that room if that happens. But we'll see.
Yeah. Tomorrow, that's absolutely the question for tomorrow night. Okay, well, we'll have a lot to talk about Thursday no matter what. We'll be back with another Dome and Domer, but for Mike Coffey and Mike Brammer, I'm Mike Sullivan. We'll see you next time.